Are Sub2 deals safe? I don't know. Are they? That's what we're going to talk about today on the Sub2 Deals show. Hey guys, welcome to the Sub2 Deals show. My name is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. We've been doing this podcast off and on. I'm going to say off and on because we've taken several breaks over the years, but we've been doing this for about 5 years and we've followed a pretty specific format for most of that time. We're coming off of gosh, I don't know how long it's been since we had our last podcast. It's probably been at least a couple of months. Jody and I have been on vacation a good bit and just regrouping on some things. We're getting a little bit older, so we're trying to spend more time just doing the stuff that we want to do. But we're changing some stuff up a little bit. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening on one of your podcast devices that you listen to out there. Gosh, there must be 1,000 of them now. But we'd like to get a like from you, subscribe. We're going to be changing things up a little bit here moving forward. Fewer guests, just more real what's going on in real estate, actually, and in our lives, what we're doing in real estate. I've been buying houses now for, gosh, over 25 years. It seems like just yesterday I bought my first house, and but we're having a good time out here buying houses and teaching people how to buy houses. But today we're going to talk about subject to deals and are they safe? You know, I've heard this mentioned a couple of times recently, in the last couple of weeks actually. One person, a guru, a wannabe guru. Gosh, there are 10,000 gurus I think now for every man, woman, and child. But it's a funny thing about the gurus. Everybody talks about them. Everybody wants to be one, but they all want to talk about them. So I don't know. What is a guru? Somebody let me know in the comments here if you're watching this on YouTube. What is a guru to you? When I hear the word guru, I think, thank God for them. Thank God for Carlton Sheets and some other people that taught me. Bill Bronchick taught me a whole bunch, Ron LeGrand, some other people over the years. And man, if it wasn't for them, I would probably still be flipping hamburgers somewhere. But thank goodness for them because they really changed my life. But I've heard this term recently. First, somebody said they were going to teach you how to do safe sub-2 deals. Okay, so apparently there's a way to do them safely. And then the same person came back a few days later and said, you know, that other people teach unsafe ways to do it. And I don't really know what that means. I mean, how do you teach somebody? I mean, I understand poor teaching. I understand teaching things that aren't really practical in the marketplace. But like I said, there's so many teachers today. How do you know who to listen to? I don't know. Is any deal safe? And some people would argue with that. They would say, well, sure they are. If you can buy a house for 25 cents on the dollar, you're probably safe depending on how much work it needs. And really what it comes down to is a safe deal is defined by a lot of things. What are the circumstances of that deal? Is it a sub-2? Is there existing financing? Is it in somebody else's name? What if the house is free and clear? You're paying cash for it or you're borrowing money to buy the house. If it needs a lot of work, your repair estimates have to be accurate. Any surprises or gotchas can be a problem. And if you uncover things that you didn't anticipate, even if you had an inspection and find things later, because everybody knows the inspectors aren't liable. I mean, when they give you a report, it's usually worded very carefully in there. As of this date, this was the condition of the property because they're harmless. So if they miss a $20,000 foundation repair and you had a tight margin on this house and all of a sudden you lost money because you had to repair this foundation to get it sold, was that a safe deal? Well, you thought it was at the time. So there are all kinds of things that make a deal unsafe. Some people would say, well, I have a safe, secure job. Well, you do until you don't, and you get fired, or if you're, I guess a man or a woman, it's possible, but you're sexually harassed by your boss and you have to leave, or you're downsized, or you're fired, or you get injured on the job and you can't work, and workers' comp fights you and doesn't want to pay you. Man, life is unsafe, isn't it? And we do real estate because real estate's fun, it's interesting. And my worst day working for myself will always beat the best possible day working for somebody else. But so what are the gurus? Okay, I'm going to use that word. I hate it, but I'm going to use it. What do they teach you to do to make your deals safe? Well, there are all kind of things. In the sub-2 niche, we like to use trust, and I think trusts are great for everything. You use trust for privacy. A lot of people don't understand really how trust work. You can avoid probate with them. There are a lot of things they're really good for. You don't have to pay a startup fee for them. You don't have to pay a franchise fee every year. I mean, they're just great. You really, if you don't use trust, if you don't know how they work, you really should check those out. But we use trust for privacy. Privacy is a great thing in helping keep things safe, because if somebody wants to sue you, they have to find you first. We all know that. But, trust can help with the privacy thing. LLCs, limited liability companies, they can help you because, well, if you carry all your houses in your own name, and somebody sues you, what happens? Well, if they're all in your name, everything that you have can be attached, and that would all, be sold to satisfy the judgment. But if you divide things up in LLCs, you can spread out your liability. So that's great. Disclosures. Okay. We in the sub-2 world, we use a lot of disclosures because we want to make absolutely certain that our seller knows what's happening, what's going on. Hey, I don't want somebody calling me in 6 months going, listen, I'm trying to buy a new house and this loan's still in my name. What's going on? I thought you bought this house. I thought you paid off the loan. Absolutely not, Mr. Seller. We explained very carefully to you in no less than half a dozen documents that the loan would stay in your name. It would appear on your credit report, and we would just make the payments until some point in the future when we sold the house. Then you signed that about a half a dozen times. Would you like to look again? And we've had that discussion. It's not a pleasant one, but it doesn't matter how many disclosures you have some people sign, they're still going to say they didn't know. The correct documents. Well, what does that mean? Gosh, we use in a typical sub-2 closing around 20 documents, separate documents that we use now. And you'll have, again, gurus of all sorts, from people like me, guys. My story. I've got a 9th grade education. Would you buy a course from someone who has a 9th grade education? Would you trust someone with a 9th grade education to teach you? Well, I've bought 800 or 900 sub-2s over the last 20, 25 years. So I can probably tell you a thing or two about how to do it. I've never been sued by a seller. We've done okay. So could I teach you? Well, probably. Would things work out perfectly for you if you do exactly what I do? Well, maybe. I mean, remember, maybe some of you had an aunt or a grandmother or your mom or something that maybe they made. If you've ever done baking, one person can be an excellent baker. The second person can follow the exact same recipe and not have success with it. So do things always turn out the same for other people? Well, no. Maybe you missed a step. Maybe you didn't follow everything correctly. Maybe you didn't use that lawyer's sub-2 docs, the guy that says you're going to go to jail if you don't use his stuff. So, I mean, there are all kinds of people out there to learn from. And you just have to use discernment and find somebody that resonates with you. But is any deal safe? No, it's not absolutely safe. This isn't a totally black and white game. There are a lot of variables in this, and you have to know what those variables are and consider those when you're thinking about your business model, what you want to do. and those things. I'll tell you this, if you have a sound business model that makes sense and you work it, all of your deals are going to be safe until they aren't. Now, you say, well, gosh, what causes a deal to not be safe? Well, it could be a lot of things. It could be your stupidity. Are you stupid? Did you stupidly do something that created a situation that was a problem for you? Do you have insurance on your property? Did you know that when you buy a property subject to, you can't just leave the insurance in place? I must hear that once a week from people who think, well, we just left Joe Seller's insurance there. Well, okay, guess what? When he signed that deed, that insurance was invalid. And I'm telling you now that an insurance company is going to try 6 ways from Sunday to not pay a claim. That's the first thing they're going to try to do. And if you've known any insurance adjuster personally, they'll tell you that. So you better make sure that you have your own insurance. And can you just send over a form and have them convert that to a landlord policy? Well, probably not. There's steps involved in doing that. So you have to ask yourself, what can cause your deals to be unsafe? Well, you can be stupid. You can do stupid things. Improper training is another thing. Man, I'll tell you this. Some investors actually believe there's due on sale insurance. Okay. Have you heard of due on sale insurance? We know that we take over mortgages and 99.999% of them have a due on sale clause. Most all institutional bank mortgages are going to have a due on sale clause. Can that be called due? You bet it can. I haven't had it done in 25 years. Maybe it's because I'm extremely lucky, but I doubt that. I think there are probably some reasons that it hasn't been called due. Maybe I handle the insurance properly. Maybe I handle how the statements are mailed out. Maybe the changing the address and the contact information from the lender, maybe being added as an authorized person to handle that. Maybe that has something to do with why I haven't had a problem with that. Lawsuits, they're another thing, depending, you can try to do all the things right, all of the things that people tell you to do, and still have something happen to you. Lawsuits, you get sued. Guess what? You get sued by a really aggressive person, an aggressive attorney who freezes your assets, who perhaps has a restraining order issued against you where you can't talk to your sellers, you can't talk to your buyers. You think that can happen? You bet it can. How do I know? Well, I know people that have had it happen to them. There are gurus that have had that happen to them. I'll tell you a story. This could turn into a long story, but one of the guys that I learned from when I got started ran an incredible real estate business and bought thousands of houses. This guy had never been sued and ultimately lost his entire business, lost his right to do any real estate transaction in the state that he resided. He couldn't even buy a house for a personal residence. He could not conduct business. By the time they were through with him, he had a $3 or $4 million judgment for attorney's fees, court costs. Ultimately lost his family and his life because it was just such a beatdown that this guy took. You think that was out of his control? Yeah, it was. Now, you don't hear about all these things, and these guys don't talk about this stuff because, well, frankly, it's kind of a Debbie Downer, isn't it? You think if you do everything right, you're going to be okay, but that's almost a cliche in the world, isn't it? We're taught to go to school, get an education, go out, get a job, work really hard, and we'll be successful. But how many people does that work for? Not everybody. Okay. Things out of your control. Gosh, I could go on. The list is long. Ex-wives, lawyers, tenants, sellers, a seller that calls you up and doesn't remember about the disclosures. We talked about that a little earlier. The weather, insurance companies. I'll tell you this, there's a debate all the time about title insurance. Should you get title insurance? And my response to that is always the same. I say, The first 10, 15 years I was an investor, I bought and was responsible for the purchase of a lot of title insurance. As an investor, if I bought for cash, of course, I got title insurance. If I bought with bank financing, I had to have title insurance. And when I was a private lender, I required all of my borrowers to purchase title insurance for me. Now, this went on for 10, 15 years, never a claim, lots of money paid for title insurance. And eventually, one of my borrowers, this lady took out a loan from me for $45,000. It was a small loan. She was buying a house, supposedly to rehab, because I didn't make owner-occupant loans. She bought this little house, and she was going to rehab it. And what'd she do? She moved into it. Okay. So, time went on, she quit paying, and eventually we had to try to take the house back and foreclose. Well, come to find out that when they did the title work on the house, they missed an open security deed, which in the state of Georgia is the mortgage instrument. Okay. So they completely overlooked that. It was a very clear case of a title company error. So I fully expected to be paid on that loan. Well, these guys fought this for 3 years. Okay. They found 1,000 reasons not to have to pay me. I had to get a lawyer, and it took 3 years. And finally, we said, listen, we're not trying to get lost interest. We're not trying anything. We just want to get the $45,000 payoff. And those guys finally paid after 3 years. And that was just a $45,000 claim. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard other stories. When we first moved to Arkansas, when we were door knocking foreclosures, we had a lady that we had a long conversation with. Her husband was chief of police in the small town, and they had been in foreclosure half a dozen times over the last couple of years because the title company sent cash. They sent a wire to the homeowner that sold them the house. They didn't pay off the mortgage, and the existing mortgage kept trying to foreclose. These people were trying to explain to them. They had all the documentation. They had everything. The title company made the error, and these people had to deal with the stress of this foreclosure hanging over their head for 2 years. And it still hadn't been settled the last time I talked to her. So title insurance, I don't know that keeps anything safe. But there are all kinds of things that are out of your control. Okay. And you just need to remember that. Now, can you make your deals as safe as possible? Well, sure you can. And I'm going to tell you what my opinion is on keeping your deals as safe as possible. Is this an absolute? You bet it's not. Stuff can still happen to you. Like I said, I've got a bunch of stories, and I've had things happen to me you wouldn't believe, because try as you might to control things, there are things out of your control, but no deal is totally safe. So what can you do to make your deals as safe as they possibly can be? Get an education. Start with that. Start with an education. And I'll tell you, real estate, and this is something I've learned over 25 years, real estate is not something you're going to go out, learn about it, get your diploma like high school, and you're out. There's a reason agents are supposed to get ongoing education. Laws change, things change, markets change. And it is an ongoing education. But I would go further and say, get an education specific to your local laws, your state laws that mandate how you can operate. Now, for us, for example, we love door knocking foreclosures. People in foreclosures have always been a high percentage of our deals. We know how to work foreclosures. We know how to help people keep their house if they want to. But we also know how to buy them quickly before they go to auction. Now, many states in the United States, I can't remember the exact number now, it changes as new states add legislation, but 18 or 20 states right now have foreclosure specific laws that mandate how you can deal with people in foreclosure. So if you buy a course on foreclosures that doesn't address this, you might be breaking the law in your state. You might be committing a felony. So it's really important that you know, when I say get an education, I mean get an education, not just the guru's course that's not written. Unless he has 50, each one that's state specific for what you're trying to do, you probably need to have it run by a local attorney just to make sure that you're doing okay. So that's the first thing. Learn how to tell the difference between a marketer and a teacher. And there are a lot of guys out here. Listen, don't hate the player, hate the game. They're experts on whatever. They've been in the field for 6 months or a year or 2 years, but they know everything. They've never been through a market change. They can't tell you a lot of things about that. But man, they spend 6 figures a month on Facebook and YouTube advertising. And hey, listen, it works for them. It's great. But I'm telling you, learn how to tell the difference between a marketer and a teacher, somebody that does it, that still does it today. And that's going to make a difference in your education. And some discernment in who you're dealing with. I had a friend last week who made a post about a guy in Atlanta that has taken a ton of students for tens of thousands of dollars for high cost mentorships. So really vet the people that you learn from. Okay. Make sure they know what they're talking about. You're going to wire somebody I think they said this guy, between $20,000 and $50,000 a student. My goodness. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's no one out there that teaches anything that's not worth $50,000. I mean, think about it. People pay, $100,000 plus, for college. I mean, they come out of school with six figures of student debt, and then they get a job in marketing somewhere making $40,000 a year. Is it worth $50,000 in education to learn something that on the first deal can make you double or triple that? You bet it is. But you have to use it, and you have to make sure the education that you're getting is applicable and it's relevant to what you're really doing. The next thing is learn how to properly evaluate your deals. Okay. Equity doesn't guarantee a safe deal. All right. Let's take an example here of a sub-2 deal. Maybe that somebody's getting out, the house is worth 300, they owe 200, they just want 10,000 and they're going to move on down the road. Okay, that sounds like a great deal, doesn't it? And maybe it is. Maybe it's got a great loan on it. Maybe the cash flow is really good. You could use it as a rental or a seller finance deal. It looks like you're going in with about 30% equity on this house, but maybe you didn't fix the insurance. Maybe the house burned to the ground. That could be a problem, couldn't it? Was that deal safe? Maybe the loan gets called due because you do something improperly and maybe your credit's bad. You can't get a refinance. You don't know anybody else that can help you get a refinance. Maybe you bought Sub2 insurance. Okay. And you're hoping that'll help you with the due on sale clause, and it doesn't help you. So again, what I was saying earlier, a lot of these things, what makes a deal safe is your actions in it. Do you have a contingency plan to refinance that thing? Do you have the cash? Do you have the negotiation skills to talk to that lender and buy some time where you can list that house and sell it? No equity deals can be safe too, depending on your business model. Let's say somebody calls me today with that same $300,000 house, but they owe $280,000. And that's a no equity deal. There's not even enough equity in that to pay a realtor and closing costs to sell it. Can I make money with that? You bet. If the interest rate on that thing's 3% and the taxes, payment, insurance, and the whole shoot match is $1,500 and it'll rent for $2,000, be hard for me to go wrong with it if the house is in good shape. It really depends, again, on your business model and what you're doing. So it's important that you know how to evaluate your deals based on your business model. The next thing you can do to make all of your deals as safe as possible is stay liquid. Have some cash in the bank. Don't always be operating on zero. I see people frequently that can't come up with $5,000 if a problem happens. If you're carrying 5, 10, 15, 20 properties, and it doesn't matter if they're sub-2s or not, but you have those payments to make and you all of a sudden get a run of vacancies or something happens, or maybe there's another COVID outbreak and there's a rent moratorium and people don't have to pay their rent. How are you going to handle that? Okay. Now, is being liquid a guarantee that your deals are going to be safe? Nope. You know how I know that? Because you can have 6 figures in reserves in the bank. And if you get involved in a lawsuit and a receiver gets appointed and they freeze all of your properties and your assets and they're billing out at hundreds of dollars an hour and they get paid first, guess what? They'll burn through that money before you can turn around. And they're not going to make those house payments, whether the payments are in your name or Joe Seller's name. It's just not going to happen. So will it help you stay safe? Yep, under normal circumstances. Is it a guarantee? No, it's not. The next thing you can do to help make your deals as safe as possible is use entities. We talked about that earlier. Don't carry all your stuff in one name. That's stupid. Okay, have your stuff in LLCs, ideally with a trust in front of that. So it'll make it very hard for someone to determine ownership or to even find you with a frivolous lawsuit. Next is carry insurance. We talked about that earlier, but also on any property, get the right insurance. Don't buy a rehab property and go out and get a landlord policy to cover a gut rehab, because I'm telling you, when you got that thing down to the studs and something happens and you call your landlord policy people to cover it, they're not going to cover it. Go ahead and spring for that builder's risk policy that you really need. The last tip that I'll give you today for how to keep your deals as safe as possible is to do good business with people. Make sure the people that deal with you understand the risks, whether that's your seller if you're taking over payments, whether that's your seller if you're buying for cash. We routinely buy houses for 50 cents on the dollar or less, and all of our sellers know what that house could sell for in good condition. There's no secret there. There's too much information available to people today, whether it's Zillow or any of the other websites they can go to. And 9 times out of 10, when we say, well, Mr. Seller, I understand that you want to get $50,000 for your house. You know it needs a ton of work. Now, this house fixed up could probably sell for $200,000. And they say, yeah, I know, but I don't have the money to fix it and I just want to sell it. So making sure that you disclose to people as much as possible exactly what you're doing and exactly what's going to happen. So back to our original question, are sub-2 deals safe? Sub-2 deals are as safe as any other deal. Knowing what the special risk and the special circumstances are for a sub-2 deal is important. You are dealing with some other things. You are going to be, in a sense, married to that seller for a period of time. They could always come back and have a problem with you. So you want to make sure that you deal with them in the correct way up front. There's also the due on sale clause to consider. Will that be a problem for you? Probably not, in my experience. If you do some things properly, could it be in the future? You bet it could be. And what are you going to do to handle that should you have a problem? Okay. But it's the unknowns and the uncontrollables. We're taught so much to control things all the time. Control, how we have this, this property held in trust or LLC, control this situation and that. But I'm going to tell you, there are going to be things that come up that are going to be out of your control. And that's when trouble comes. Those are the things that you need to plan for. And just having a plan, it's just the what ifs. And you always need to think about those. So hope this helps, guys. Listen, again, if you're listening to this on a podcast station, we'd really appreciate a review or a like and subscribe. Same thing on YouTube. We don't release as many videos as we used to, but our videos are going to be better quality and hopefully serve you better. Leave us a comment below and let us know what we can do to help you with your real estate investing. We always want to deliver content that's helpful and helps you guys get on to the next level. So get out there, talk to some sellers, and buy some houses.